Hello everybody and welcome to this special live from the Met Office. We are live on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm Alex Deakin.
Hello, and I'm Alex Merkel. Yes, it is it's an exceptionally hot week coming up. We have issued a number of warnings, which we'll be going through in a second. But get your questions coming in. If you've got anything planned that you think you might need to postpone, cancel because of the hot weather, do let us know and we can maybe give you a bit of a steer, because we are going to see some exceptionally high temperatures. It's not often we talk this hot.
No, it's crazy, really. The temperatures that we're looking at. Deputy Chief this morning was talking about unprecedented, and how certain shifts stick in your mind. And be sure that the shift today's shift will be one that he remembers for a long time, because we've issued a red warning. We had the amber extreme heat warnings in place that we issued through the course of the weekend, but this morning we've issued a red warning for that extreme heat across parts of the south. It is not hot everywhere, far from it. Parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland are actually pretty pleasant, to be honest, with some sunny spells. It really is focused across England and Wales, in particular across parts of the south. But do keep your questions coming in. We will try and answer as many as we can as possible, either watching on YouTube or on Facebook. And even if you're watching this not live after the event, you can still put the questions in and we'll try and go through as many as possible. Really important to say, do keep up to date with the forecast. As I say, we've tweaked the warnings this morning. They're constantly being reviewed. This is going to last all week. So you do need to keep up to date with the forecast, see exactly how you could be impacted by this remarkable hot spell that we're going to see over the next few days. There's lots of tips, lots of really good advice about how to stay cool on the Met Office website as well.
Indeed there is, but let's get cracking and let's dive into what's going on. First, I want to talk about those warnings then. We already had amber warnings out for the extreme heat through much of this week across the bulk of England and Wales. But earlier on today, we did issue a rare red extreme heat warning for parts of southern England into the Midlands and also parts of South Wales as well. It's because here we're going to see exceptionally high temperatures through, well, already, but through Wednesday and Thursday in particular. That's when the warning is valid, from 9 a.m. Wednesday until 9 p.m. Thursday. And it's not just the temperatures that we're concerned about, it's also the high humidity. I'll talk about this in a second, but there are comparisons but also stark differences between this event and what happened back in 2022 when we first exceeded 40 Celsius somewhere in the UK. And the big difference between these two events is the humidity. It's a much higher humidity at the moment, which means it's going to be really uncomfortable, unpleasant, particularly, well, both by day and by night. It's going to make it very difficult for sleeping just because of how warm and sticky it's going to be. The temperature won't drop. Add to that the fact we are so close to the solstice. It was yesterday, the longest day of the year. So the nights are very short at the moment. So we just don't have the time for temperatures to drop, which is why they're going to stay so high overnight and be exceptionally high during the daytime as well.
The humidity is really important because that's how your body cools down effectively. So if you've got high humidity, it means there's more moisture in the atmosphere. It is basically harder for you to sweat, and sweating is the way that your body cools down. So if you're losing sleep at night, you're not recuperating that energy, but also you'll make it costs your body more energy to try and cool down. So that's the key factor. So we, often when we talk about heat, we talk about the vulnerable, but in that red warning area, this could affect anyone, even if you're, think yourself physically fit. You really need to think about changing your behaviors later this week if you're in that red warning area in particular, but also in the amber warning area. Just try and avoid doing much, if anything at all, during those peak hours between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. What are the temperatures we're looking at, Alex?
So very high, exceptionally high, to be honest. That's not an overstatement by any means.
No, records are going to be broken.
Records are they are going to be broken. Often we put caveats in, but worth highlighting, the maximum June record is only 35.6. I say only, that's high, but we're almost certainly going to break that on Tuesday. Here's Monday, but let's start ahead to Tuesday. And if I put my layers on, then I should be able to just pick a couple of places and dart around, and I could probably, without much difficulty, find somewhere. There we go. We've got some 34s, some 35s. We probably are looking at highs around 36, 37 Celsius on Tuesday, maybe even 38. And so that's why we're very likely to see temperatures beating or exceeding that 35.6 record, which, was actually last reached in 1976, the famous June of famous
50
summer
years
of
on.
1976. Yes, we're marking the 50th anniversary of that event, and what a way to do it, with temperatures exceeding what we saw by several degrees. So Tuesday, we're likely to have the hottest June date on record for the time being, but they're going to get even higher as we go through into Wednesday. Let's just put a couple of temperatures. You can see 35, 36 quite widely, but signs of 37, 38, even 39 Celsius possible by Wednesday. And then by Thursday, well, again, it could be similarly hot, perhaps even hotter still across more northern areas. Yeah, the heat, the exceptional heat spreads its way further north. And so mid to high 30s quite widely across much of England and Wales. And so that's why, yes, Tuesday could be the hottest June date on record, but a reasonable, well, very likely we're going to exceed that on Wednesday and perhaps on Thursday as well.
Interesting to know as well, we broke the May record.
We did just a few weeks ago.
Just a few weeks ago. To break two monthly records in 2 consecutive months is incredible.
And also worth highlighting that we're going with forecast highs of around 38, 39 Celsius. There's an error bar on there. The all-time record is 40.3. That was
2022.
Yeah, exactly, in July 2022. And
it could be close. It could be close.
It's going to be close. Worth highlighting as well that temperatures across northern areas, I mean, you mentioned it's much more comfortable there, but they are going to be rising here through the week. They're not going to be as exceptional further south. England and Wales almost certainly going to exceed their June records, whereas Scotland and Northern Ireland, it could get quite hot, but I don't think they'll exceed their June record. Only a slight little low chance. Then with regards to the temperatures, and we've already talked about it, but I wanted to look at our humidity. Let's just get rid of this. Let's put that back on. Don't know why it's doing that. Oh, hold on. Has this been letting me down?
Oh, that's the temperatures.
No, that's the
You're going to show the humidity.
There we go. Here we go. This should be humidity. No, it's still showing me temperatures. That's why. I'll get there eventually.
Just bear with. The screen can't cope with the heat. That's the problem. Exeter at the moment is the hottest part of the UK, which is where we're broadcasting from right now. It was up to 30 degrees when we checked at the top of the hour. So yeah, it's actually the highest temperature at the moment, and it's in kind of southwest England, southeast Wales, where we'll see the top temperatures for the next couple of days, then perhaps moving further east and further north, as Alex was talking about, which is why we could see those temperatures. On Thursday, some of the highest temperatures actually across parts of northern England, but not in the red warning area. A few reasons for that, as Alex is trying to get on the graphics, the humidity won't be as high. Also across northern England, the temperatures won't be as high for as long. So in the south, it's like day on day. We're going to get 3 days of these mid to high 30s, whereas further north, probably just 1 day. So it's a combination. We issue these heat warnings when we think there's going to be significant health issues. There's amber warnings out, so it's not going to be plain sailing. But the red warning is further south, just in case people are asking about why we haven't got the red warning further north when we're going for similar temperatures. But it's just 1 day, and the humidity won't be as high, and the nights won't be as hot either.
So I've got my humidity graphics up now, working properly the way I was expecting. And this is looking at our dew point temperature. Now, the dew point temperature is the temperature at which the air needs to be cooled down to for all the moisture in the air to be condensed out. So the higher the dew point temperature, the higher the humidity. And like we've discussed at the moment, the higher the humidity, the more uncomfortable it is, because your body can try and sweat, but it does little when you get sweaty, because the moisture is not getting evaporated off you because the air is already so saturated. Now, looking across the UK through this week on Wednesday, loads of places have dew point temperatures of around 19-20 Celsius. That is exceptionally high. To put it into some context, back in 2022, when we reached that 40.3 in Coningsby, I think the dew point was around 7 degrees. So it is going to be markedly higher than that, which is why it's going to feel so uncomfortable, both by day but also by night, particularly when it comes to sleeping. It's going to be a struggle for many places.
Yeah, and the kind of temperatures we're looking at, not just for people, obviously will struggle as well, but the infrastructure struggles as well. This country isn't built for those kind of temperatures because we don't see them. So we don't have the aircon on our public transport system. The rail network, the road network may struggle with those kind of temperatures. It may cause damage to infrastructure.
Exactly, because in other parts of the world where they see these temperatures more frequently, there's justification to spending that extra money on making the rails, the roads able to withstand those high heats. Roads, for example, you need a special polymer within the road surfaces to make it withstand temperatures above like 50 Celsius or whatnot. I'm talking about the road surface temperature, not the air temperature. Whereas there's just not usually, and hasn't been in the past, the requirement for us to use such a resource and spend that extra money. And similarly with rails, you can put concrete blocks around the railing in order to stop it from buckling in extreme heat, but that costs a lot of money, which our rail network in the past just hasn't needed.
Potential for power cuts as well. The power network again also not geared up for these kind of temperatures, and that's what we saw that issue back in the 2022 heat wave. So I guess the next question is, why is this more humid? Why are we seeing more humid air this time around? What's going on? Why are we seeing that temperatures, and why are we seeing the high humidity?
Well, let's look at the bigger picture and what's going on. And at the moment, we have high pressure. We've had this big heat dome, if you will. It's a relatively new term in the meteorological world, but there's big heat dome over the near continent. There's been exceptional heat, historic heat across parts of Spain, France, and shifting across into more central parts of Europe through the last few days. Temperatures in some places, if this works, it's not working. Why is that not working? Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. That's why.
How much rain we're getting? Not getting a lot of rain. Breaking news.
I'm just pressing random buttons, and eventually it'll work. Here we go. Temperatures here we go. You can see low 40s, high 30s across parts of France at the moment. Across parts of Spain, we're also seeing mid to high 30s and low 40s. So it's exceptionally hot there at the moment. Now, just going back to our picture, and we have high pressure across the UK. High pressure means the air is sinking, so there's lots of sunshine around, and so day on day we're seeing air being heated up. But if we put on our winds, you can see the winds wrapping around, and they're now clipping and dragging in some of that hot air that's been across parts of the near continent. If we just run this through, if I press play, it should go at fast enough speed. Through the next couple of days, because of the progression of that high pressure, we're going to get more and more of that hot air from the south, and it's pushing its way further northwards. And so that's why we're going to see temperatures rising, particularly on Wednesday, but also Thursday. And by Thursday, that hot air spreading across more northern areas. And so that's why probably Thursday is going to be the peak of this heat, at least for the bulk of the country, even if maybe the extreme temperatures will be on Wednesday. In terms of the humidity, well, it's all been trapped within here. And so that's why we're seeing things rising. Interestingly, if we look at something called trajectories, we can draw some comparisons between this event and what happened in 2022. So if I just show you, first of all, 2022, so looking back in July, and what this chart, bear with me if you've not seen it before, but we're looking at where the source of the air in the 1,000 meters closest to the surface, where that air has come from. And the darker blues are is the air that was reaching the surface. We're looking, I believe, at Coningsby, which is where we had that 40.3 Celsius. And the darker blues are showing where the air right at the surface came from. And then the yellowy colours are showing where the air near 1,000 meters up coming from. Now, a lot of the air, as you would often expect with hot weather, was coming in from the south. But the immediate air closest to the surface wasn't coming from where you may think a typically warm direction. It was more coming from the northwest, via Iceland, for example. But it was this process, because here you can see the movement of the air as it was coming towards the UK. It was sinking, and it's that sinking process that causes the air to warm up, because the pressure increases, and so that's what you get by subsidence. You get the temperature of the air rising as it's lowering and lowering and lowering and coming towards the UK. So there was a bit of an element of this southerly flow, but it was the air coming across and then lowering as it comes towards us. And it's that lowering of the air that we get, that we see with pretty much all of our heat waves. Now, earlier on this week, the trajectories are actually quite similar in many ways to what we saw in 2022. So you can see the air coming from the northwest, the air slightly higher up, still coming from the south, but it was all wrapping round, and then the air was lowering as it came towards us. But if we look later this week and look towards Thursday instead, and the pattern's ever so slightly different. There's more of a southerly flow, both to the air around 500, 1,000 meters up, but also the air closer to the surface. It is still lowering and sinking as it comes towards us, but its starting point is higher by this point. So as in the temperature is higher. And so it is rising, as you would expect, as it lowers and comes towards the UK, but the air is already hotter than the air that's arriving on Tuesday.
And more moist.
And more moist.
Because it's coming from the sea, coming from
higher
warmer,
moisture.
warmer source. So that's why the humidity is higher as well. So it's the same process of the air getting squished, rising, lifting the temperatures. It's that same process, but the air is starting off hotter and starting off with more moisture, which is why we're seeing more humid conditions.
Yeah, whilst we're talking about the humidity, let's look at something called the humidex.
Humidex
is a lovely word, but it's not good reading when you look at what has occurred in the past and what was happening. So this is looking at the humidex from the July heat wave, and it showed that some places had in excess of 30, and when you're getting above 30, that's when it becomes pretty uncomfortable, but not a huge amount. Whereas if we look through the period Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, if we look at the peak humidex across this swathe, this southern part of England and into South Wales, that's where we have humidex of 35, 36 in some places. Now that is really uncomfortable. It's difficult. It's when you're looking at those kind of levels, trying to do strenuous activity when it's that humid becomes dangerous, to be honest. And people, particularly with those with underlying health conditions, the elderly, they will really struggle. But the general public, the majority of us, will also find difficult conditions when you get humidity just this high. Now, it's worth highlighting, we showed that we could get some higher temperatures a bit further north, particularly on Thursday, outside of that red warning area that we have for both Wednesday and Thursday. But it's because of this extremely high humidity combined with the very high temperatures day on day. So Wednesday, Thursday, exceptionally hot days, and that exceptionally high humidity. That's why we've issued the red warning to cover for that part of southern England into the Midlands and also parts of South Wales.
Excellent explanation, Mr. B. Loads of questions coming in. Please do keep them coming in. We'll try and answer some of them now, but keep them coming if you have just joined us. Taking any questions that you like about weather, about climate, but we're particularly obviously focusing in on the heat this week. Can you show the dew point for Scotland, please? Puffin Nest.
Yeah, that's I'd love to. Let's try. It let me down a little bit earlier. So
you can do this. You've got this now.
I just need to press the right buttons in the right order, and then we are okay. So dew point for Scotland, let's look on Thursday perhaps. Scotland's quite a big place, but even the dew point up here by Thursday is high, 18, 19. If we compare it to currently, or this is Tuesday, but let's go back to Monday. Currently the dew point's only around 30, low to mid teens, whereas it jumps up massively to the high teens, possibly even low 20s by Thursday. So as that hot air, that humid air rises up the country, we're going to see pretty uncomfortable across parts of the north by Thursday.
Gordy B asking if sea surface temperatures are increasing with the heat. I mean, there will be.
So sea surface temperatures are increasing. There's always that lag between the heat that we get in the air temperature and the sea surface temperatures, but they are rising. I mean, they are higher than they were a few weeks ago. I think in the south they're around 16 degrees at the moment, around 12 degrees in the north. But still worth highlighting, whilst we're on the topic of sea surface temperatures, there is still cold water shock. When we're talking about air temperatures of 38, 39 Celsius, perhaps even higher than that, to then jump into a body of water which is 20 plus degrees colder, then that can cause major problems. There's cold water shock. There are other issues. You know, if you try and swim in areas which you aren't familiar with, there could be hazards that you're not aware of, and just general issues with trying to freshen yourself up and relieve yourself from the extreme heat by going into those bodies of water. So do take care if, like many, you're planning to take a bit of a dip.
Yeah, lots of really good advice about that. The RNLI website, the RLSS, the Royal Life Saving Society. So it's lots of good advice about that. But yeah, please, cold water shock is very real and a very dangerous phenomenon. If you do get into trouble in water, then try and float on your back. stick your feet up if you can, but just float how you can. Keep your head right back and just float and try and calm yourself down and let your body adjust to the cold water shock.
An interesting statistic that I saw was the vast majority of drownings are male, and it's a lot. And I think there's a sort of ego thing when it comes to it in many respects. And so, look after your friends, look after your family, look after your kids, make sure that they're aware of the dangers.
Someone asking if Manchester was going to be included in the red. They're not at the moment, as we've just discussed. Manchester are going to see incredible temperatures for northern England by the time we get to Thursday. That whole Greater Manchester, Liverpool area, high 30s. But as discussed, not in the red currently. The warnings are always being reviewed, constantly being monitored. We just issued that red this morning further south. But this isn't the peak of the heat in Manchester is going to be Thursday. So keep up to date with the forecast. But for the reasons outlined earlier, that's why that part of the world, even though they're going to see similar temperatures, are not in the red at the moment because the humidity won't be as high and you're not going to have the same longevity. So the impacts aren't expected to be as bad, but there will still be significant impacts. I mean, you're still in the amber warning area, which is pretty significant. Amber extreme heat warnings are rare. We've only issued them prior to today. We've only issued them 3 times since we started doing them in 2021. So yeah, they are pretty rare events. Lots of people asking, will my school be closed? Do I have to go to work? We can't really answer those questions. That depends on what your regulations are for your employer. We're just forecasting the temperatures. You need to check with your employer and what the regulations are when you're at work, but that's not the kind of thing we can answer.
I think my wife's a teacher, and we looked this up the other day. I don't believe for schools there's a set threshold for maximum temperature for when schools should get closed. And I suppose part of that is because it's not that usual, particularly in the past, where we had such high temperatures where, we often talk about snow cancelling schools and flooding, but extremely high temperatures closing schools is
it's the same with snow, isn't it? It's up to the people who are making that decision, right? It's not like, there's 5 centimeters of snow, we have to close.
Especially also because different schools are set up differently. If you've got a nice modern school, whereas lots of schools are old buildings, and they're built to try and trap heat in, because that's what.
And as discussed, if you just did it on a threshold temperature, then you're not taking into account the humidity and that kind of stuff as well. So there's all kinds of complicated things. It's just our job to forecast the weather. We cannot tell you whether your school or business will be closed or not.
But I think it's worth bearing in mind, or I think it's worth that head teachers, businesses should take heed of the warnings and make the decisions that are best for their schools.
Schools are currently watching this broadcast in A-level environmental science. Crookham Cobras, 1976. Hello to you, watching this in A-level environmental science. Thanks for watching, guys.
Does your teacher know that you're watching?
No, I think, it doesn't say whether they're the teacher or, maybe have a word with your headmaster, make sure that they're your head, make sure that they know that, it's going to get hot. How about severe storms? Lots of people asking about thunderstorms. Again, there aren't any warnings out at the moment for those because, there could be some today. They're not expected to be beefy ones, but you might get a rumble of thunder, that kind of thing. But we are, again, it's something that's being monitored. But for thunderstorms, you just don't have the certainty yet about where they could be. So that'll be something we watch through the afternoon. We know the heat is coming. We know pretty much where it's going to be. Thunderstorms, we know there's a chance of them, but we don't want to issue big warning areas and then actually only affect a tiny part because they're always much more hit and miss. So thunderstorms are often much more shorter lead time, but they're not out of the question.
With regards to the rain, so, there's there's rain across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland at the moment. Then there's this swathe of showery, perhaps thundery rain in parts of the southwest. I was in the way, so I'll just dart back and redo that again because I don't want to block it. So there is the potential for some thundery showers to push eastwards through this evening and overnight. But as you mentioned, Alex, confidence isn't particularly high for exactly where and when, but do bear that in mind. Later on this week, Tuesday's actually looking largely dry. Wednesday's largely dry away from the northwest. Thursday, that's when, because, we've had the humidity across us for a bit longer, greater chance of seeing some showers kicking off. And then towards the end of the week as well, some showery rain, particularly across northwestern parts. So we do often see thunderstorms breaking the heat down. That may be something that becomes more of an issue later on. But whilst we're talking about breaking things down, it's worth highlighting by the end of the week, Friday, more so Saturday, things are going to be markedly fresher and more comfortable, I think. Still quite hot by the weekend, but nowhere near as exceptionally hot.
Yeah, we're going to lose the extreme heat on there and some of the humidity too. KTKI 10 said, "Oh, so much drama, as if it's never happened before." Well, it kind of hasn't happened before. That's the definition of a record. So it hasn't happened since records began. We're going to have these kind of temperatures. So that's why we're kind of trying to get the message across. Not trying to be over dramatic, just trying to get the message across that these are exceptional temperatures, and when we see these kind of temperatures, they do cause health issues. They put extra strain on the NHS. They do cause significant problems to infrastructure. When we see these temperatures, we don't see them often, but when we do, they cause problems. And it's our job to let people know. We know that lots of people like hot, sunny weather, and that's fine. But this is kind of next level. We do have to warn people when there is a potential risk to people's health. And there's a significant risk to people's health, not just because of the temperature, but as Alex has been through with that humidity. Keep your questions coming.
You say this hasn't happened before. Just to reiterate, the current highest temperature we've ever recorded in June is 35.6, and we are likely to exceed that through at least 3 days this week. So Tuesday, we're looking at highs around 37, 38. By Wednesday and Thursday, 38, 39, possibly even higher than that. We've only exceeded 40 Celsius once. That was back in 2022. It's not out of the question. So we're looking to exceed the June record by several degrees, both the maximum temperature and also the minimum temperature record.
Yeah, the minimum temperature records are going to go as well. Lucas Knight, wasn't it this hot in 2022? Okay, well, as discussed, we did get to 40.3 in 2022, but this is different because it's happening earlier in the year. So that was July, this is June. So we are going to beat the June record. And the humidity is higher this time around. This is a different beast. The humidity is significantly higher, which has health impacts. So even if we don't get to 40, even if we're only 38, 39, it's still likely to cause significant health impacts because of that increased humidity. So yes, it was. And also in 2022, we had a red warning out, and there were wildfires up and down the land and fatalities, and the rail network almost came to a standstill, if I remember correctly, because of power lines going down and that kind of stuff. So yes, it has happened in terms of temperature in 2022, but it caused significant problems. So we're trying to avoid that again by letting people know that's the
same with a lot of our warnings. We're not necessarily, I mean, in this instance, we are saying it's unusual and unheard of for June. But a lot of our warnings aren't saying this has never happened before or anything like that. But now we have the ability to both forecast events and also warn people of them to help people make better decisions to stay safe and thrive. That we're doing our service in order to get that message across, which is why we produce these videos, which is why we issue the warnings, to make people able to make those decisions to keep themselves safe.
06 Howie 1, don't forget about the wet bulb temperature, which takes into kind of a measure of the humidity. So a wet bulb temperature is where you put a thermometer and have a little piece of cloth or muslin around it that's wet, it's moist. So that's the temperature you need to get down to in the air to have 100% humidity. So the higher that is, the harder it is for the more humidity, the harder that thermometer has to work to lower the temperature, because of the humidity is higher in the air around it. So that's what the wet bulb temperature is. And yes, the higher that is, then the more humid the atmosphere is. And we are seeing very high wet bulb temperatures expected throughout the course of this week, which is why the humidity is going to be high. What are the chances the all-time record being broken? Alfie Ball 9005. About 20%, I would say at the moment, but it's one of those ones.
That's the all-time 40.3.
Yeah, the 40.3. The chance of that being broken, we're saying about 20%, so 80% chance that it doesn't get broken. But things changed, even overnight. The models came in last night. The midnight run of the computer models came in, and that had bumped the temperatures up. So that the chances of that record being broken have increased even in the past 12 hours or so. So yeah. it's around about 20%, we would say, at the moment.
It's interesting you mentioned wet bulb temperatures. At times this week, for some parts, we're looking at wet bulb temperature around 25 Celsius, which is exceptional and higher than across large swathes of Europe, where they also have exceptional heat at the moment. So that's another reason why you may find it's more uncomfortable, more unpleasant having these sort of temperatures here in the UK than you would do when you're on holiday, whatnot. It's just more humid, it's more uncomfortable. Add to the fact that people are trying to get about with their daily lives and go to work or whatnot at the moment, which when you're on holiday, things are slightly different.
Keep questions coming in. This is going good. We're really enjoying answering your questions as best as we can. So keep your questions coming in. Share the love. Let other people know that we are live watching on YouTube. Don't forget to hit subscribe and hit that like button as well. Scene artisan. This is a good question. How are Met Office warnings issued? Like, who has to agree on it for it to be formally issued? That's a good question, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it depends on the warnings, but lots of people is the answer. So the chief meteorologists are the ones that they sit in our operations center, and they look at so many different things, lots of different model outputs, observations, past experiences, and then they talk to our civil advisors, who go out and talk to government bodies around the country, around the areas likely to be affected by the weather. And then there's this sort of conversation to work out the likely impacts and how severe they're going to be, bearing in mind the likelihood of the extreme weather, whether it's wind, rain, temperatures in this instance. And then once it's all agreed that there are going to be the significant impacts, or there's the increased likelihood or significant likelihood of these impacts, then the warnings get lifted, they get checked and tested. People get to view them to make sure that they